Joining me now to unpack this, we have Peter Enobang, the Nigeria Compliance Officer at Juicy. Great to have you on the show.
Hi, Ladi. Good afternoon. It's good to have.
Fantastic. Great to have you. So let's get a quick check now on what's playing out in the market. So far, they were seeing Bitcoin there in the green, 0.67%, $115,000. Wow, we're seeing that. We're seeing Bitcoin trying to make a move, back to maybe the previous highs. Who knows at this point? Ethereum, $4,515, up 1.09%. And we see Solana there, quite an incredible story for Solana. This was trading mostly at about $200 for the longest time, sub 200. But I guess it's trying to make that big move at this point, 4.43%. $238 for Solana. So, definitely very bullish sentiment going on with Solana right there. Cardano in the red, SUI, that's in the red, XLM, LTC. So a couple of major altcoins there in the red right now. And, definitely if you look at the headline, Solana is on the headline there. Solana's climbed above the $240 level, overtaking Binance Coin to become the world's 5th largest cryptocurrency by market capitalization, at $128.7 billion. The rally, fueled by a strong uptrend since mid-June, has seen the token consistently print higher lows after breaking above the $205 level and the 210,000 resistant band. However, analysts caution that Solana's price now looks overextended, with momentum indicators signaling a potential pullback. Key support levels are pegged around $218 and $208 to $210 zone, which, if sustained, could set the stage for a continuation of the rally towards $260. Then Gemini, the cryptocurrency exchange founded by Cameron and Tyler Winklevoss, successfully raised $425 million on its highly anticipated initial public offering. So we'll get more details on that. But let's try and get Enobang again. I guess, Enobang, can you hear me now? Is it better?
Yeah, I can. Yeah, I can hear you.
Fantastic. So I was asking you now, definitely it's all about regulation now, digital assets. Everybody's looking for direction. You want to know who is handling what, whose jurisdiction is, what when it comes to digital assets. So talk to me about the NTAA 2025. Looking at the broader definition there of virtual assets, how does it differ from ISA 2025?
Okay, thank you, Ladi. The thing with it is that we've had these issues before, where we had a bit of confusion between the Central Bank of Nigeria and the SEC on who regulates things like this. But however, we understand that virtual assets have been very much involved in the way Nigerians trade, disburse funds and hedge funds against the Naira over the years. So the ISA itself came to provide SEC the affirmation that they are in charge of what we regard as not just virtual assets, but digital assets. Now, the NTAA came to provide a little bit of preempting, to preempt what the ICA was silent about, on how to distinguish what a virtual asset should be. That is providing rules that were made available in the Huawei's case. But however, for all Nigerians and for all investors, it is glaring that by the sections available in Schedule 5, that SEC in itself is responsible for regulating whatever we want to trade in the virtual space and in the digital space. So both entities agree on what virtual assets are because they both adopted the definition from the FATF, that's the Financial Action Task Force, which defines virtual assets as a digital value that can be used for payment, investment, and the likes of it, and digitally traded. But however, the SEC goes further to give an advanced asset, which is the digital asset. Now, every virtual asset can be digital asset, but not every digital asset can be a virtual asset. So the NTAA is very specific on virtual assets, but SEC goes further to provide avenues for digital assets in itself. So, but however, for the NTAA to preempt SEC, we hope to see if that is the line SEC wants to use in the interpretation of virtual assets, considering that the NTA is improvising that the Howey's rule be used on what a virtual asset should be and whether or not those entities should be taxed. So we would see that as we have investors and players coming to into the industry.
All right. So what type of assets will you say are excluded from the NTAA definition?
Sorry, I didn't get you.
I said, what kind of assets will be excluded, from the NTAA definition?
Okay. Like I said, the ISA distinguished between what a virtual asset is and what a digital asset is. In fact, the new rules for the issuance of digital assets in 2022 provided guidelines for how to apply as a visual asset service provider and as a digital exchange operator. So the thing with it is that, like I said, all virtual assets are digital assets, but not all digital assets are virtual assets. So assets that are digital assets but not virtual assets generally should be presumed to go outside the purview of what the NTAA emphasized. For example, stable coins are not virtual assets in themselves, they are digital assets. And why they are digital assets is because they are not decentralized and they are not stored in a blockchain. But however, they have value, they can be digitally traded, they can be used for payment. But applying the Howey's rule to it might still fail depending on how SEC intends to go with the flow. But the NTAA preempting them to use the Howey's rule might cause a bit of conflict. But at the end of the day, we presume that SEC and the Revenue Service would find a way to make investors to be certain about that.
All right, and definitely these are different institutions here working towards, I guess maybe a single goal or multiple goals. But could Nigeria face, regulatory overlap, between the SEC, CBN, and the tax authorities?
Ladi, as a compliance officer, I will tell you it's something we currently face in a level of things because sometimes regulations overlap and it creates a lot of compliance costs, uncertainty, and it bridges investors' trust in the system because if you don't have clarity on the process to take in order to be compliant for regulatory processes, it creates a little bit of anxiety on what to expect. But however, I believe that as players come into the industry players get involved, these things will be made plain and clear. But considering as it is, I think the NTAA really did not conflict the position of SEC, but it only tried to preempt what should be expected of SEC in that industry. So I don't think there should be much views apart from the sake that SEC would really want to understand what we are bringing in as digital assets and virtual assets.
All right, definitely a lot to unpack there. I guess, still early days. Everyone is still trying to wrap their heads around, how to regulate digital assets and cryptocurrencies. At some point, I'm sure we'll have some kind of consensus. Well, thank you so much, Peter Enobong, as the Nigeria Compliance Officer at Juicy Way. Thank you for coming on the show today.
Thank you, Ladi. I appreciate it.